Hello and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. Here, we dive into the cutting-edge world of prototyping, aerospace, rapid manufacturing, mass customization, and beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. Today, I'm thrilled to have Ted Moore, co-founder and chief technology officer at Indy Audio Labs. Indy Audio Labs designs and manufactures high-performance immersive processors, preamplifiers, and power amplifiers for home theaters, media rooms, and two-channel listening. Welcome in, Ted. Pleased to have you on the podcast. You're a longtime customer of ours. I know you've got an extensive background in audio. You're currently the chief technology officer and co-founder of Indy Audio Labs. Can you just give me a rundown of your past experience, both maybe professionally and personally, your interest in audio, and how that kind of has culminated in your venture of Indy Audio Labs?
Sure, and thanks for having me on, Jordan. It's great to come on and talk about what we do, and I'm always ready to help out ProtoCase. You guys are a fantastic supplier, so very happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my background is in physics. I'm a physicist, and most of my career has been sort of about instrumentation design, experiment design, and things like that. Originally, I actually got into the whole workforce thing as a process engineer in the semiconductor industry while I was still in the United States in a big way, which everyone seems to have forgotten these days for some reason. But anyway. It's kind of interesting to see it come back and everybody's sort of focused on it now. But I did a fair amount of pretty interesting stuff in that business for about 12 years in thin film deposition and a process called chemical mechanical planarization and things like that.
Interesting.
Have 3 patents in that field. So that was really interesting and always something fresh every day, and it was a pretty cool industry to be in. It was high tech before high tech was a thing, So out of that, I got sort of into my own gig where I was doing instrumentation, custom instrumentation construction, and did some work with atmospheric instrumentation.
Okay.
That was applied for military uses. It was also astronomy uses. So it was both an optical and infrared instrumentation design and some automotive stuff, and kind of got into audio late in the game. From most people. Most people are sort of into audio when they're a teenager.
Yeah, that's what I expected. Honestly, that's kind of where.
Yeah. So I've done a number of different types of physics disciplines, as it were.
Right.
And I had not done anything in acoustics. So it was kind of like, that sounds interesting. I've not really done anything in that. So I'd like to play in that arena for a while and see what's cool there. So that's kind of how I pivoted from instrumentation design, which was primarily optics at that time, and material science type stuff, and into audio acoustics. And I did that through, coming on with Klipsch as one of their senior directors of electronic systems.
Okay.
Actually, as the senior director of electronic systems. That's where I met my business partner, Rick Santiago. We started Indy Audio Labs a couple of years after we met. And we started it right at the beginning of the Great Recession, which, there's a lot of people are like, why are you doing that? It seems insane. But the other thing I've had a strong interest in besides physics is entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And I'll admit it, a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and you kind of have to be if you want to be a serious entrepreneur.
Yep.
You have to be able to, every day is different, and you don't know what you're going to get hit with. So if you're the kind of person who really likes to have like your day planned out and predictable,
Yep.
Entrepreneurship is
Not for
probably
you.
not for
Yeah.
you. It's really about, okay, what's the universe going to throw at me today, and trying to figure it out. And that kind of thing is very, while it can be very stressful on one hand, it's also very exhilarating and exciting to navigate through that and see how you can
Absolutely
overcome those challenges. And we decided to start Indy Audio Labs because we wanted to create high performance audio electronics that had well, there were multiple aspects. One aspect was we wanted to try and build them in the United States. So we wanted to source the parts in as close to our location as we could.
Yep.
The United States, North America in general, and we also wanted to do our own ground up designs that reflected our, pretty tight expectations on how audio should perform, but also how people interface with that.
Yep.
We wanted to create relevant user interfaces to the high performance audio world, and we also wanted to bring networking in, which was at the time, and this is 2009. That was kind of a growing thing. It wasn't an established thing. It was like, why isn't this there?
Yep.
So we brought two brands, Acurus and Aragon, in 2009. These were owned by Klipsch, and they had kind of put them on ice a little bit. These are electronics brands, so amplifiers, preamps, processors, AV processors for home theater market, so forth. There were no products to sell. We had to build those from from the ground up, which we did.
Right.
So all of our products are all custom. They're all engineered by us. We design all the boards. We design the mechanicals. The user interfaces are all ours. The firmware is all ours. So it's very, very bespoke.
Yep.
Extremely high performance audio electronics that's designed and built in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we have suppliers, that span down to Texas, all the way up to you guys in Nova Scotia. So it's pretty exciting work. And that's the big long story about how I got into audio from my origins.
No, that's very, very interesting. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it does make sense. So what I pick out in that is, it seems to me like there is some commonalities in your, being intrigued by technical challenges, regardless of be that in the semiconductor industry or audio, and likewise the challenges with entrepreneurship and the creativity involved in solving those challenges in both fields. My question, I guess, would be, do you think that there's a specific thing amongst those disciplines, the technical audio physicist side of you and the entrepreneur side of you, that excites you the most?
Yeah, it's really about getting kind of slapped in the face with a very difficult problem. One of those things where, wow, this is something that has to be solved like now.
Yeah.
The more complicated and absurd is actually the better for me. I really love a good challenge, especially if it's a good technical challenge. I'm trying to, by this point in my life, I've sort of accumulated a lot of knowledge about materials, about electronics, about, of course, physics, and I can draw upon. I'm sort of at the point where I can kind of draw on all of that in a very fast way and interesting way to me anyway, and deploy it against a problem to solve it quickly and with high probability of success, robustness, and all of those things. Those are the kinds of challenges that really turn me on. And in audio is kind of is sort of an interesting field because it really touches on a lot of stuff that I've done in the past. There's, especially in audio electronics, because there's heat transfer, there's material science, there's electronics, of course. advanced semiconductors, keeping tabs on what's happening in chip development, things like that, and how it could apply to our industry for the next cutting edge performance audio product that might go in someone's home. And even in some cases to optics, how we present our UI and what are some interesting ways we can bring out that interface all the way down to what does the push the on button look like,
Yeah.
and the integration of all that stuff is pretty intriguing. And I haven't even gotten to the acoustics, which is how does our stuff integrate with um, speakers and the video panel, and then finally in someone's home theater or whatever room they're putting our gear into. How do we represent that, and how does it land in the ear? And then there's this, from a physics standpoint, there's all kinds of energy transformations that are happening, and and watching where noise is getting added and how to pull noise out of that transfer and that process from a source material, which could just be a digital track somewhere, and how it lands in your ear.
Yeah.
And all of that is super complex. It's a lot more complex than most people think. And that's something that's pretty interesting to try and figure out.
Yeah, I can imagine, and obviously with the wide array of equipment that you're trying to interface with, that just adds a layer of complexity.
Oh yeah.
Do you find so obviously, what I hear in that is that you're a very innovative person. You
Try to be, yeah.
You like the pressure of having to innovate. Is that something that you are intentionally fostering amongst your team as a leader in your organization? Is that something that's important to you guys as an organization to bring to others that you work with? That I guess mantra of solving difficult challenges.
Yeah, it is, and there's a couple ways to do that. First, you lead by example, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be the person who is, just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you stop innovating.
Yep, absolutely.
Because if you stop innovating and you're in that kind of position, the example of innovation is not being set. So you have to have that first and foremost.
Yep.
And then you have to give your people a lot of room to maneuver, and that means making mistakes. And you have to be tolerant of those, because innovation is it's a messy business. It's chaotic. There's a lot of effort to put formalism into the innovation process. I get some of that, but really, it needs to be sloppy and messy and hot and bothersome and annoying, and you have to reach into sort of sometimes ugly places to get the good ideas, the good stuff. You're the leader, so these people are under your mentorship, right?
Yep.
So you have to, and if you're doing innovation, you have to give them the freedom to think outside the box. It's a well-used phrase, but they have to be people who can embrace chaos, right? Again, you're looking for someone who is. They don't necessarily need to be an adrenaline junkie like me in terms of entrepreneurship and all that, but they do need to be able, not be put off by sloppiness or just general. You're trying to get to sort of a brain exercise of a eureka moment, right? So you can't seal off alleyways. You got to be able to go down. You need to go down the dark alleyways, right?
Yes.
You need to go into the bad parts of the city and all that kind of stuff if you really want to innovate. And if you can do that and you come out of it and you've got a really good solution, there's nothing like it, especially if you're into tech. So I do try to foster that, but first you have to lead by example. You have to keep the innovation in your soul, if that's where it is. They have to see that that's important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's interesting in a lot of the conversations that we've been having on the podcast. They all kind of circle back to that point, that you can't be stifling and micromanage the individuals that are helping the next generation of innovators, and likewise
Right.
that tension between. I think we talk about it around here, like the tension between tenacity and flexibility. And you have to have the flexibility to, think of new ideas and go to those dark alleyways, but then the tenacity to run down them. And it's kind of this flip-flop back and forth constantly in order to get to an innovative solution. So it's quite interesting. I wanted to ask, so you had two products that you mentioned. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing either of them wrong, but it's Acurus and Aragon, correct?
Correct. And those are actually brands.
Okay, brands.
So within each brand, we have
Multiple
a product
products.
line.
Okay.
Right. And the difference between them, they're both high performance, high end audio brands. Acurus is a primarily home theater brand.
Okay.
Although we're thinking about doing some 2-channel products in Acurus.
Okay.
Aragon is sort of our premium brand. So it's a 2-channel focused product line right now. So it's amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
We have a monoblock, which is a single amplifier for a single speaker channel, and dual monoblock in our Element series. So the first one I mentioned is called the Iridium,
Mm-hmm.
and Aragon Iridium monoblock, and the second is the Aragon Titanium dual monoblock.
Okay.
And those two products can marry with our tungsten 2-channel preamplifier.
Okay.
So this is this is 2-channel listening, and it's now at an absolute premium level
Mm-hmm.
in terms of performance and price. It's not to say that Acurus isn't at a premium level; it is, but it's meant for a different market segment in the high end residential market. And so there's different industrial designs. The two brands. Acurus is known for a minimalist look and feel. It's got a fantastic UI and our multi-channel immersive processors. And then Aragon has sort of a really in-your-face aesthetic where the front panel looks like it's been carved, and it's just stands out like crazy when it's sitting on a shelf,
Mm-hmm.
in a dealer showroom with its peers. It's like, oh, that's the one I want. And we call it serious metal because it's pretty. They're about 80 pounds when you have one. So, and they use big, really insane Class AB amplifier topology, which is lots of warm power, big toroids, and huge cap banks to provide that current when necessary. And so those brands are for different applications in the residential market.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's kind of how we distinguish those. We're thinking about going into, not to give away too much of the store, but the other thing that we have going is our Aspect acoustic optimization kit.
Okay.
Which once the installer has put in all of the equipment and they've done the room treatments, right, and they put all the furniture in and so forth.
Right.
The last thing they usually do is some type of room optimization. So it's an equalization exercise where they tweak this and that in the integration of the amplifier, the processor, and the speakers. And we have our Aspect kit will perform that service automatically. So our customers, who are the dealers, our products end up in user hands, but the dealers are actually our customers,
right,
who install the stuff, our direct customers. They can set it up, and they can basically initiate it the process and leave the room and come back. half an hour later, 40 minutes later, and everything's taken care of. They can listen to it, and then they can go back and tweak it if they feel they need to make some adjustments. And that's a pretty exciting product. It's been out for about 4 years. And, it's always something that we're innovating on to add in this and that feature that a dealer might want.
Yeah, that's it makes total sense that if that is your customer base, that they are the integrators, that making their life easier is what should be important, and that product definitely does that.
Right.
I was wondering, so you have multiple products, so I know this question might be pretty big, but I guess broadly, what specific challenges do you guys face in the product development of a new product within either of those brands?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Surprisingly, it's not what most people think. The supply chain.
Okay.
So ensuring that the components that we pick and materials that we pick and so forth and so on are going to be available for a while, and they're going to be priced right. That they have a superior level of performance that we're looking for, especially in things like chips, DACs, and so forth. Board materials, how making sure that our board manufacturers, I'm talking about the actual PCB board before it's stuffed, making sure that substrate is of extremely high quality. It's got electroplated nickel and gold on it. It's got, it's thick enough for whatever's getting inserted into it and so forth. But, if it's one thing COVID taught us, it's like the supply chain, if you don't watch it like a hawk, not that we didn't before COVID, but we've taken it up several notches since COVID, is, parts can suddenly go obsolete. And COVID did do that for a lot of parts. It's just like, well, this is an opportunity for us to redesign chips and things like that. I'm talking about manufacturers. And they did so. So sometimes parts aren't available. You have to be aware of those in your design. So paying attention to the supply chain is actually some of the biggest challenges. And since it was made clear to everyone that the global events are influencing, especially semiconductor supply chain, in such a strong way. That hasn't changed since, it's gotten better since COVID sort of stabilized, but there's a lot of other threats out there to the global semiconductor supply chain, a lot of activity in it. That's got to be watched out for, and we have to take that stuff into consideration. And the worst thing to do is to build a brand new product, source a bunch of chips for it, and the next year those are gone.
They're gone.
And now you have a big problem on your hands. So that's actually some of the most complicated stuff we do. It's not real sexy.
No, it's the grinding
it
work.
Is, just to answer your question truthfully, that's kind of the big thing we have to worry about. I would say second on the list would be staying up with technology and trying to navigate through it, because you have to navigate around the hype. Or pull apart the hype and get to the substance of what's happening in technological innovation that's going to affect our industry.
Right.
And then pull that information into your roadmap so that, in a year or two or three, you'll come out with a product that's going to fit into the environment that'll be there 3 years from now. And that is a challenge, and it's a lot sexier than the supply chain one. So we really get into that one a lot and talk about that. It's definitely something we talk about, if not daily, certainly 2 or 3 times a week, as we discuss our roadmap, what's going on. And we all make it a habit of keeping tabs on what the new technologies are that could affect our industry that we need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody, most people in business and in any industry is feeling that right now. With the development of AI being the top of mind for a number of people, trying to figure out how that will change the landscape for them. I did want to ask you if you could wave a magic wand and fix the supply chain issue, maybe specifically with respect to semiconductors, because I know that that's something that's kind of close to you. What would that look like? Is that onshoring? I know that, again, that's something that you guys pride yourself on. It's all American-made equipment. What would that look like if you could fix that?
I don't know if it's really onshoring. I mean, that's great to do, but it's multiple sources, so semiconductors are made in fabs. They're called fabs, semiconductor fabs. And we just need to make sure that there's multiple fabs making, multiple chips, that they're not single sourced in a certain fab, for example, which has happened. There was a fab in Japan that burned down, I think it was 2019, and that caused a lot of supply chain issues for people who were using their chips. That really should not happen.
Yeah.
There needs to be a multi-source or multi-operation for specific chip families that are critical. Sort of. A sub-bullet to that is some of the legacy type chips. This would be older technology stuff. Can be hard. That was some of the first stuff to go during COVID. Like voltage regulators and things like that. Just real simple stuff that vanished. Things like buffers, which are really used very heavily. IO expanders. This is all really like in the weeds, but if you can't find that stuff, it really doesn't matter if you have
a design,
a 4 nanometer technology node on your board. It's not going to run. So there's a lot to work on in the global supply chain for semiconductors that needs to make it more robust if we're going to be confident in it going forward over time.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's really interesting how the things you take for granted can change so quickly, and kind of pull the rug from under you. So you talked a little bit about the excitement of entrepreneurship. If we had any listeners that maybe wanted to get into entrepreneurship but never have before, what advice would you give them as new entrepreneurs entering whatever field they may be entering into?
Yeah, I mean, advice can be a dangerous game. I would say the first piece of advice is have realistic expectations. Having said that, that's not a reason to not do it, right? It just means have realistic expectations, be prepared to work very hard, don't be prepared to be disappointed, right? And be prepared for some of the most exhilarating successes you're ever going to have. I always tell people, I mean, this is kind of an old Indiana saying, maybe it's other places as well. You better have some hard bark if you're going to go down the entrepreneurship road.
Okay, I've never heard that one.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to be a cold person. You just have some, and it's beyond thick skin. That's why I say hard. Yeah. It's more like hard bark. You better be ready for some stuff that will challenge your sense of self and confidence and so forth. And you got to get through those things.
No, I think that's sound advice. It definitely makes sense given our chat and the discussion about tenacity and needing to kind of push through ever-changing challenges. So I think it's great advice.
But if you think you have all of that, then I think you should do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you should go for it and try. And if you got a great idea and you're passionate about it, and you feel like you can't, if like it's in your head all the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's never going to go away. It won't go out of your head. So why not listen to that little voice and try it?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's excellent advice for anybody listening who may be thinking about taking that plunge. My last question, last but not least, what is your vision for the future of Indy Audio Labs? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
We just want to continue dominating the market in our vision of what high-end audio looks like. That means doubling down on our Made in America
Mm-hmm.
message, doubling down on our custom and bespoke engineering and design, and making sure that we give our customers, both the integrators and the end customer, exactly what they
Mm-hmm.
want in their homes, so that they can enjoy what we bring to the table. If you listen to our equipment, you'll experience an audio sensation that you probably have never had before, and you'll hear things in music that you love that you've never heard before, and it really evokes kind of a pretty substantial emotion
Mm.
if you experience that. And we want to continue bringing that to people, but even more of it, and making it more interesting to use. On top of these are fantastic products to listen to, and if you're watching a movie, you're just in the movie, and it's just like giving you chills
Yeah.
all the time because the audio is fantastic. We want to develop more into other products that will go into the rest of the household and so forth. But really, it's just about doubling down on our audio message, which is the fundamental thing that we've built,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that into our next gen of products, continuing to bring that into our next gen of products, and just building more and more satisfied customers. Really,
Awesome.
I know
It's very exciting.
that's not a lot of deep messages, but we've got to keep
No,
some
it
stuff
definitely is.
close to the
It makes
space.
me want to hear the sound. I can imagine what that emotion. I can relate to it. Not that I've ever heard it, but I would love to. If folks listening are looking to find Indy Audio Labs, where will they find you guys?
Go to our website, www.indieaudiolabs.com, or alternatively, our brands, acurasav.com or aragonav.com. Any of those three websites. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram. So, there's a lot of different ways to get a hold of us. LinkedIn, we're on there. Drop us a line. We're always happy to hear from people.
Awesome.
Let us know what you think.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ted. It's been a blast chatting with you, and I wish you all the best, and hopefully we get a chance to meet in the future.
That'd be awesome, Jordan. Appreciate you having
All
me
right.
on. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.